Hello everybody, welcome back to Throttle Grotto. Today I'm going to show you how to install a wideband O2 sensor. So I'm going to be doing it on this old Datsun here, but the good thing is that the techniques to install a wideband O2 are pretty much universal. You can do it on just about any car, and it's a great way to be able to tune your car. It's actually probably the best way, especially for one of these old carbed machines. All right, so I guess the first question is, why am I installing a wideband on an old 60s Datsun? To answer that, it's because I have new carburetors. These are Mikuni slide draft carburetors, and they actually have 4 zones you can tune the carb in. So it's idle, off idle, like below full throttle, and then full throttle. So you can tune this in 4 different stages. Problem with that is that you need to be able to see if you need to add or take away fuel during those times, and the best way to do that is with a wideband O2 sensor. So I'm going to install it in the car. I'm still waiting on a new radiator and fan, so I'm going to have to wait a day or two to run it, but we can get the install done today, and then once I have the cooling system back together, we can run it, see what the wideband reads and where I need to do some tuning. Okay, I've got a perfectly clean work surface to work from here. This is surgical grade here. So what I picked up was I just picked up this universal kit from Amazon, and this looks like a total mess, but it's really not. You have the gauge, which is just a simple digital air fuel gauge. And it has 2 plug connectors, and then this is the bracket, so if you drill a hole in something you can mount it. And then you have 2 pigtails. The shorter of the pigtails is your wiring for the gauge. The longer of the pigtails is for your sensor, and then you have the sensor, and there's also a bung, and the plug that goes to there, and the bung. So this is the part that gets welded into the exhaust. So you have to choose a place to weld this in. So something to think about when you're choosing a place to install it, because once you drill a hole in your exhaust, you kind of need to commit to it or weld it back up and find a new place. But this oxygen sensor is going to stick out the depth of the bung plus the wiring harness. So you do need to find a place that is suitable and gives you enough room for not only this, but it to move around and not rub on anything. So that's the next step, is figuring out where we're going to put it. Okay, so now that I've got my very expensive low-profile creeper, you know, you can't just go buy this stuff in stores. This is exclusive here at Throttle Grotto. We only have the finest products to work with. Okay, so I got to go handheld here. There's no room for me and the gimbal underneath this car. You'll notice that the bottom of this car is immaculate, by the way. Super clean. So we just got to find a place that works for our sensor and gives me enough clearance to install it, and it doesn't. I also don't want it to like smack on the ground. So this might be a really good place for it right here. Sort of parallel to the ground. Once it's in the bung, it'll be closer, won't be interfering with the transmission. So that seems like a pretty good place. Now I have to get a hole in that place. Okay, I drilled a pilot hole there. And now I'm going to use a step bit, and I'm going to go sort of slowly to make sure that I don't punch it out too large, because it's nice if I can get this to seat right into the exhaust pipe. Makes my life a lot easier. Okay, so I've got the surface prepped for the bung. Since this is bare steel, I'm not too worried about it. You can see, let's see here. Can't even see what I'm doing. There we go. So you can see the bung with the little step on it fits in there really nice if you get the hole drilled just right. And then here our oxygen sensor will sit. It will sit a little bit deeper than that, and it shouldn't hang down too much. And I can run the wire up that way through the engine compartment. So that is good. So the next step is to weld this on. All right, everyone, I did a absolutely horrible job of welding on my bung. Wait, let me rephrase that. No, that's the correct phrasing. It's just talking about my bung. Just talking about my bung. Anyway, I did a terrible job. I probably could have turned the heat up a little bit on that weld. And working on like 3 hours of sleep underneath the car, upside down with barely enough room to get underneath it. It'll be better next time. So next step is to put a little anti-seize paste on my O2 sensor and thread it in and run the wire up to the top of the car. Okay, now that the air fuel meter is plugged in, one thing I have left to do is wire it. So this has 4 wires. I'm going to do the very non-man thing. Look at the instructions. So I don't know what an auxiliary unit that accepts a 0 to 5 volt input is. Maybe that's like another gauge. It looks like I just need red and black. Power and ground hooked up, and I still have to figure out where I'm going to install this thing. So that's the next step. As you can tell, the interior in this car is in amazing shape. Practically showroom quality, so I don't want to screw it up too much. All right, so after a little bit of work, here we have a bracket to hold that high dollar piece of equipment. Skimming a bunch of wiring that I wasn't really planning on doing, but needed to do. And the stuff, I now have key-on power to the gauge. So that is working. It's not mounted in the glove box yet. I still need to figure out exactly where I want to put it in there so that I can read it from the driver's seat if I need to. But it does appear to be working, running through its some kind of sequence here. All right, so I'll go ahead and fire this thing up real quick. I did have it running earlier, so it's not warm, but it's not cold either. It does take a minute to kind of kick in. So we're sitting at about 1500 RPM, and it's going to be a little bit lean because it's cold. Oh, actually, there we go. It's kind of sitting right about where it should. 13.5 to 14 at idle. So that is a good sign. That's a good baseline for tuning. Now I need to go through and do the rest of the tuning on the car. All right, so there you have it. That is how you install a wideband oxygen sensor and use it for tuning. I'll go over the tuning part in a different episode for those that are more interested in just this carb setup. But if you're thinking about doing a wideband, it's not that difficult. As you can see, you can put it on just about anything with a 12-volt system. So hopefully this helps you guys out down the road. So that's all the time I have for today. Until next time, get out there and work on something.